A lot of people in recent years have complained that the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is not as good as it once was back in phases 1, 2 and 3. And to an extent I can kind of see where they're coming from if you look at the projects we've been getting in phases 4 and 5, purely from a quality standpoint. Every project we've had in phases 4 and 5, whether it be a TV show or a film, has been the literal definition of hit and miss. For every Shang-Chi, there is a Black Widow, and for every Spider-Man No Way Home, there is an Eternals. However, with that being said, I do think the MCU is actually thriving at the moment in one specific area that I don't see anyone else talking about, which is what I wanted to talk about in this video, and that is the sheer amount of variety that we've been getting since Phase 3. If we look at the projects we've had in phases 4 and 5 and just put personal opinion and quality of those projects to one side for a second and just look at the variety that we've had, there's actually more there than we thought. Now, when I say variety, I mean that in a couple of different ways. Obviously, we have more variety now in the MCU in terms of the type of stuff that we're getting. In phases 1, 2 and 3, outside of a couple of offshoot TV shows here and there, all you really had to pay attention to was the core films that were being released. However, with the start of Phase 4, we got purpose-made TV shows that were properly interconnected into the MCU compared to the other TV shows that we had previously that were kind of off to the side or just loosely connected in their own way. So yes, obviously in terms of the type of stuff we're getting in the MCU, we now have more variety than ever with the likes of TV shows, films, and obviously Marvel special presentations like Werewolf by Night and Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. However, the type of variety that I wanted to specifically focus on for the sake of this video was the sheer amount of variety we've been getting in terms of varying styles and genres. Because in phases 1, 2 and 3, a lot of the projects kind of looked and felt the same outside of your Guardians of the Galaxies and your Captain America Winter Soldiers, which were trying something a little bit different, but were still sticking to the general MCU formula, so to speak. Plus, I'm also aware that there was quite a bit of variety at the very start of the MCU when they were trying to find their footing and see what works and what doesn't. If you just look at that first run of films from Iron Man all the way to the first Avengers film, there is quite a lot of stylistic and tonal variety in those films. The Incredible Hulk looks and feels completely different to Captain America the First Avenger, and both of those don't look anything like Iron Man, and none of them look or sound anything like the first Avengers film that we got. All of them have their own unique styles. However, after that first Avengers film, again, outside of stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy or The Winter Soldier, everything kind of had a similar look and feel to it. But since Phase 4 started, they've been experimenting in so many different styles and genres that it's now currently one of the main drawing factors for me anyway that keeps me invested in the MCU, whereas a lot of other people have kind of dropped off because they've just kind of given up with the franchise. The amount of genres and styles that they're attempting in the MCU is the one thing that's actually kind of keeping me going, because I'm always intrigued to see what they delve into next. And again, if we put the actual quality of these projects to one side and put personal opinion to one side as well, when you look at the sheer amount of styles and genres that the MCU is dabbling in for these projects, it's actually something to admire, at least from my perspective anyway. If you look at Phase 4 alone, you've got the likes of Eternals, which is this sprawling sci-fi epic. You've got Black Widow, which is a spy thriller. WandaVision was an attempt at trying to weave sitcoms into the MCU formula. And it's that aspect of current day MCU that I don't see anyone talking about, and I really wish it got the respect that it deserved, because it's something that I think the MCU is doing really well. Again, quality of the projects to one side, a lot of these things you don't know until you try them, and I love the fact that the MCU is now at that position where they can just kind of do what they want, and if it doesn't work, they can just go straight to the next thing. For instance, if they want to dabble into horror, for example, they will, and they have quite effectively, in my opinion, with the likes of Werewolf by Night and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Yet, if they want to look at sitcoms, they can also do that as well, which again, they have with the likes of WandaVision and, to an extent, She-Hulk. And whilst they're experimenting in all these other things, if they then want to turn their biggest film in years into technically a road trip film, then they can do that. And they did with Deadpool and Wolverine. Do you see what I'm getting at here? You can kind of push the quality of these projects to one side, and if you just appreciate the amount of variety we're getting just from genre and styles alone, there is a lot to appreciate here, and I think it's something that not a lot of people have stopped to really look at, especially with phases 4 and 5 of the MCU. And because of these change up in styles and constant experimenting with their own formula, it also allows these projects to look and feel different from stuff we've previously had in the MCU, which again is something that they're trying to attempt more of in phases 4 and 5, and hopefully even more in phases 6 and 7. And again, that's something that I'm not really seeing people talk about, because it's something that, again, as a viewer and wanting to see more diversity in terms of the type of things we're getting in the MCU, it makes these new projects just a little bit more engaging. For example, Werewolf by Night leans into horror, but is also presented in black and white as if it's like a film from the 1940s, 1950s. I love that feature, and it's one thing that makes Werewolf by Night stand out compared to literally anything else in the MCU. Also, WandaVision, for example, every episode was paying homage to a different type of sitcom throughout the years. So in doing so, the look and feel of each episode changed to fit the types of sitcoms that they were paying homage to. That even included the change of aspect ratios. And it's stuff like that that I really love seeing in the MCU, and whenever something slightly different does show up to fit the style or genre that they're going for that project, I think is just a nice attention to detail that, again, no one is really talking about because they're so worried about the quality of the projects. Even something like the Marvels, which I personally had a lot of fun with, manages to squeeze in elements of animation at the start of the film, which gives it a unique opening compared to other films we've had in the MCU. And it's these sort of things, it's these trying of new things that I love seeing in Marvel or just any franchise, and the fact that they're willing to go out of their way to try these things, whether they work or not, I think is something to appreciate, and is something people should give the MCU more credit for doing. Now, whether these experiments actually work or not for you as a viewer is, again, completely down to you. It's your own personal opinion, and some of these attempts might either just fall flat on their face or might just not be your thing, which is completely fine. But the fact that we now have horror, martial arts, sprawling sci-fi epics, spy thrillers, and sitcoms all within the same franchise is kind of unheard of, and I can't think of another franchise that has that much variety of style and genre in it. Obviously, these change up in styles aren't going to work for everybody, and there are going to be some people who are kind of alienated by them, but on the other end of the spectrum, there are going to be people that love this, and even then it might introduce new fans to the franchise who are fans of horror or sitcoms or spy thrillers that may not necessarily have been an MCU fan before. It's a double-edged sword. It may piss some people off, but it will also bring in some people who are a fan of that specific thing that the MCU is trying. This is a topic that I genuinely don't see that many people talking about, and I do think more people should talk about it and give it the praise it kind of deserves, because I think the MCU is trying something pretty unique here that no one is giving the credit for that it deserves. I'd love to have a discussion about this in the comments below, so I'd love to hear what you think about this topic, as well as the current state of the MCU in this specific angle. If you like the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.